Hi guys, this is part 2. This is my percentage on what I think Candy's involvement is with Summer's disappearance. Okay, now before we start, Don's one was my opinions, and I'm hoping people will pull some stuff out of that and say, yeah, that's good, but I think it could be this, or when I go to my live, when I do my lives, I just got a bit of technical things at the minute, not from my end, but I'm safeguarded, so they watch everything I do, if you get what I mean. So, including this, so I can't say much, but anyway, so, as they say, Daddy's watching me. Not real Daddy, just a Daddy. Big Brother's watching me. How's that better? So, this is just my opinions. And if you don't think it's that, then tell me why you don't think it's that. Tell me what you think it is. It's not about prove it, prove it, prove it. For those who want proof, then you're going to have to wait till the police. The police aren't going to release anything that is going to tip the scales to a certain way. They're not going to do that. They're not going to allow interviews by Chris, the interview room. Chris is an expert, right, at policing and everything. He's not going to put things out that could twist us, because someone might get it right and then tips the criminal off. And then the police have to work fast, and they need more time to get the evidence together. Number two, if you look at his interviews and the way they've been cut, when it shows signs of someone, which I'll explain and show you in future videos, this way I'm leaving that video last. Hopefully arrest will happen first. I've downloaded it, I'm just waiting to release it, right? When they do certain things with the interviews, you can see, but then he cuts it before it goes any further. So, to stop people assuming or making the assumption, because it could be right. Number 3, the police are saying, we're not using psychics. But there's only one police that's saying that. Number 2, oh, psychics are statistically, they just generalise and stuff like this. Look, A, you're obviously talking to the wrong psychics. B, a psychic can only give you like a radio. It's not the psychic's fault if the radio is hard to hear, or if it doesn't come through clear enough. So when people skit and say, oh, the psychic makes it general, like, oh, is it? They're fake. A real psychic will tell you something that only you would know. Number 1. Number 2, sometimes it's hard for psychics to get the message down because the spirit's confused. Or now the psychics are dealing with people who have been horrifically murdered, have been pulled out of their body before their time, have, you know, so they're going to have all that emotions and all that things that they have to sieve through. So imagine a psychic as just, like a CB radio, right? And the only way they can put things is whatever the spirit puts. But if you're talking to, say, take Summer, you're talking to a 5-year-old, it's going to be confusing because the 5-year-old's confused. But if you take a woman who's been brutally murdered by her husband, and her children's been brutally murdered, and her children's in a different place she can't find, it's going to be hard to break their emotions, because we attach their emotions, their feelings, their thoughts, everything like that. The psychic's got to go through so much, plus energy drain. But there is fake psychics out there. Like there is fake religious people. Like Don. Are you telling me that every religious person should be judged on someone like Don? No. So just because some psychics fake it doesn't mean that they're not real. Doesn't mean it's not real. It just means, A, you've got the wrong people. B, the psychic might not be that kind of psychic that can give them an empty envelope and tell me about it. That's not psychic. That's someone who can feel and sense like a sensor. That's someone else. A psychic doesn't have a picture inside an envelope and lock an envelope. It doesn't work that way. You go to a place where something's happened and the spirit will be there because it's always dragged back. And sometimes you'll see it. Sometimes you'll see the axe. Sometimes, but don't forget, if the spirit didn't see the killer, then how do you expect the psychic to know the killer? And how do you expect the spirit to know the killer? It depends on a lot of things, whether they can give us the name of the killers or not, and we can give it to the police, and why, where, when, how. Don't forget, they've just been murdered. They've just been attacked. They've just been put into the spirit world. They're confused. They've got a lot to deal with. So they're going to give us confusing messages. So it isn't just sitting there saying, oh, generalise, it's water, there's water, there's water. It's not about that. That's not a real psychic. A real psychic is someone who goes down to the place, is able to talk to the spirit and is able to see what the spirit sees. If the spirit didn't see the murderer, then they're not going to know who the murderer is. Eventually they will, because they'll figure it out and stuff. But, you know, psychics are working with early death within 6 months. Now, the psychics that resolve most crimes are longer because the spirits had time to figure out what went on, who did it, followed the murderer. Because don't forget, 9 out of 10 times the murderer will go back to the body either to do something or change the location or something like that. And that's when the spirit follows the perp back home. And then from there, that's when the spirit sees who it is, where it is, by a driver's license or something. And then they come to the psychic and say, I know who it is now. But you can't expect the psychic to know anything. It's not us that know. It's not the psychics that know. It's the spirit. So if the spirit doesn't know yet, the psychic won't know. If the spirit doesn't know where they are, but they saw trees and stuff like that, it doesn't matter if there's millions of trees in millions of the world. If the person saw a tree, then the person saw a tree. And the psychic can only relay what the spirit sees, what the spirit knows. So if the spirit says, oh, I seen like trees and it was running fast, it could be anywhere, yeah. But the psychic's only telling you what the spirit's telling you, what they saw before they died. And until the spirit figures out who it is, which is what I'm saying, when the time the spirit knows is when the perpetrator, either they know him, or if it's a stranger, they get pulled back to their body. The perpetrator or the person who's hurt them goes back to do something, then they follow them home, and that's how they figure it out. Then they come back to the psychic and say, I know who's done it. But all psychics are, all people are, is like a device, if you like. A human device. So it's like a walkie-talkie. That's what a psychic is. It's a walkie-talkie. The spirit is the one that will tell people what they died from, who they died, where, how, when. But they also gives us feelings and stuff like that. And sometimes the spirit's feelings are totally confused because they're feeling love and they're feeling happiness because they're there, but they're feeling sad because they were pulled away. And we've got to go through that. It's like thick soup. Unless you start picking it out slowly and sieving it out, you're not going to know what's in that soup because it's too thick to see. But everyone always blames the tools. A bad workmanship always blames their tools. So coppers and that won't use psychics because they don't believe they've done anything for them and stuff like that. Well, I'm sorry, but tell your victims to be more better than. A real psychic, you know, it takes a long time. We're dealing with someone who's just passed. that shouldn't have passed, that's been through trauma. Give us a break. It's not easy, else everyone could do it. Give the psychics a break. Anyway, now I've had my spiel. So this is mine on how involved I think. Now, this isn't, my Don's one and all these ones aren't who did it. This one is, did they do it? Were they involved? Are they a part of it? I'm going to give you some ideas that are going on in my head. And I have to wait for my neighbours or my care workers to write it out. So it takes time. But I get it in my head and I just want to bring it out to yous. And then yous can pick through it and tell me what you think. Like, oh, I think this could be, but I don't think that is. And then we can work through it in the lives. And in the end, we will come up with a jigsaw puzzle, a picture. And we will come up with the finished one. And then we'll wait to see. But there's one thing mysterious angels won't do. And that is give up. Once the police are done and they say, that's it, if you've got any more information, but there's nothing we can do, we're not going to make this case go closed. We're going to stick to this case until it's solved, regardless. If we have to do it or not, regardless. People who are joining that are in that area can be an angel and they will go out and we won't let this lie. Summer's coming home. And I don't mean home as into her parents, but either way, Summer's going to come home so she can be buried properly, so then she can move on in her life instead of having to go back to that horrific time. Okay? So, here we go. Are you ready? Are you sitting down? You grabbed a snack? Have you grabbed a drink and a snack? Come right back. And then we can start. So pause this, grab yourself a snack, and then come right back. So here we go. So this one today is Candice, mother of Summer. 98% that she had something to do with her disappearance. She's had 6 kids, possibly 7. There's a dispute about whether she gave a child after Summer away. There's a dispute about that. The police will know. We don't know. So that's why I've put 6, possibly 7. Okay. She had 6 children. 2 of the children with her ex-husband, who she ended up adopting out because she adopted them out, adopted the children out for a better life, according to her. Although she had 4 more children with someone who was worse than her husband was, her ex-husband was. So just keep that in mind, guys, okay? She had 4 children with a person that was worse than the ex-husband, where she had 2 children with, and adopted them out so they could have a better life because she was on drugs and alcohol. And yet nothing's changed, right? She goes on about the swing, that's important to her, the canoe and the back door and the basement, and also her mum's trailer. So it's slightly different than Don's, right? She has criminal charges and records. She has a temper, a known temper. She takes alcohol and drugs. Her job is housemaker. Now, the reason why I put maker, because people say, no, it's housewife. No, it's not, it's housemaker. Because some husbands stay at home while the wives work. Right? So it's not fair to call it a feminine thing when it's not. So it's housemaker. She's done a really bad job of being a housemaker, but that's what she does, right? That's her job. Her favourite thing to do is go on TikTok, do photos and videos of gangsters and pretending to be a gangster, stuff like that, right? She didn't want Summer. When she found out Summer was a girl, her mum was going to adopt Summer. But Don stopped her because he wanted another daughter. Keep that in mind. Why didn't she want a female? Why did she only want boys? Because the other baby was apparently, if she had 7, the other baby was apparently a female. And she adopted that straight out from the hospital. So, but that's just a myth at the minute, because unless the police will know, because they'll have medical records. So, apparently also a myth is a text message that said it's done. But if you listen to my last video of Don, that makes sense. So, she phoned Don before she phoned the police. And Don then told her to phone the police. You wouldn't phone your husband first if you were in a panic. You would phone the police first, or you would run to your mum first, who was on your property at the time, and then your mum would have phoned the police while you phone your husband, or you would have phoned the police while your mum phones. But why did Candice phone the police and not the grandmother? Not Summer's grandmother? Because it was Summer's grandmother's phone. So why did Candice phone the police and not the grandmother phone the police? Why Candice was phoning her husband? Because their precious time's wasted. Right? If it was an abduction, they've just wasted a load of times, right? Now, they're saying 6:30 it come in, so she must have phoned her husband earlier, which the phone records will show. Now, these people are important. Jose. Now, everyone keeps putting Jose back, but I'm going to explain now why Jose is very important in this little tiny thing. Hunter, Allison and her mother, they're important in Candice's life, or was. But their associations are very important. The church isn't as important to Candice as it is to Don. I.e. sleeping at church, wearing a hoodie up, being separate from the church, not going all the time, stuff like that, right? So she's not as religious as Don is. And Jose's important because where did Jose sleep? It's well known he spent 2 days at Candice's. That's why she had to fight with Allison. Allison was going to date Jose, and that's why she asked her ex-husband to bring him down. But then apparently Candice stole Jose. So Jose stayed behind instead of going back to New York. So Jose would have known the house, the layout of the house. He would have known the layout of the house because he was in that house. Number 2, he was threatened by Don. And they had a big argument. But where did he sleep? Because if Don was away at the time, because Don was away, he had an affair or he cheated, depending on how long it was going on for, right? So this is why he got upset when he rushed back home when he found out that Jose was staying at Candice's and Don's house. However, someone must have phoned Don, which is either Hunter or Allison, to tell Don that Candice had Jose in the house for a couple of days, for him to rush back, knowing the fact that it was going to cause grief. So Jose is angry. Candice's mum had to drive Jose away to save Jose being attacked or killed. because they thought Don was coming back. So Candice lied and told Don he was gay. When Jose specifically come down, so this is why Jose is important. Jose specifically come down to be with Alison and get to know Alison, because they've been chatting back and forth. But he ended up staying with Candice. And Don had an affair. So someone must have called Don. So who called Don to tell him that his wife had an affair with Jose? The only one I can think of is Alison. And she's Alison and Hunter are going to be big people in this. And I'll explain why. So Jose, number one, knew how the house was laid out. He knew that Summer slept in the bed. But where did Jose sleep? Did he sleep with the boys? He's a strange man. Living in a house where it's either downstairs or upstairs in the kitchen you sleep. So if the boys are upstairs, Summer's downstairs sleeping in the same bed as a mum. Now, don't forget, if a child stays in your bed, has stayed in your bed since they were babies, no matter what, she's not going to sleep with her brothers. She's going to still sleep in that bed because she won't be able to sleep because of the routine. So did Candice let this Jose guy get into bed with Summer and her? Or did they wait till Summer was asleep? Or has she already sedated Summer and put her in her brother's bed, sedated all the kids to sleep downstairs, and then slept with Jose? Where did Jose sleep? That's important. Jose knew the area, he knew the dogs, and the dogs knew him. He spent a couple of days there. So Jose knew about the back door, how it's locked and unlocked. Jose knew where Candy slept, where the boys slept, where the TV was. There's no couch. There's no floor room. So he couldn't have slept on the floor. So where did he sleep? He either slept with the boys or slept with Candice and Summer. But he's a strange man. They don't know him from Adam. They only met him when he went down to see Alison. So Jose's a big part in this. And so is CPS. Now, CPS, so if you don't clear your act up and you don't make this safe, we're going to take the kids. So instead of her doing what she needed to do to keep her kids, she locked out and wouldn't talk to him and refused to talk to him. So I believe the day Hunter was probably called by her saying CPS is going to come and take Summer away and that, we're going, my mum's in hospital, and they chatted about it. And the reason why Candice kept away, because legally she couldn't take the kids because then they could class it as kidnapping. So she said, well, I took my mum to the hospital. So that's not illegal. That wouldn't put CPS in a position where they have to call the police because they've ran off with the kids. She could have phoned CPS or texted them and said, I'm rushing my mum to hospital, she's damaged her knee. This is all a ploy to keep her away, and told the boys not to come out and locked them in the house. And who would know that? Hunter and Alison. Hunter said very clearly that he was discussing like what happened with Jose, why did they end up not talking, what were they doing, like why was she blocked, who blocked her. If you listen carefully, Hunter says that they were talking about that. So why bring it up? Who brought it up? So they would have known CPS was coming to take the kids. They would have known that. They would have also known that they were going out to stay out the way of CPS coming up that day to check the property and that. So that's why Jose, Hunter and Alison and the mother is very important in this, and that's why she's so high up. Because she has criminal charges. She already adopted out her 2 children because she was young, she couldn't cope. Her husband was being abusive. According to her, she was on drugs and alcohol, and she wanted to give them a better life. However, she didn't want to give the other 4 a better life with Don for some unknown reason. And Don was a lot worse than her ex-husband. On top of that, she's only just started talking to her oldest daughter now because of Summer going missing. Right? So these 4 people here in Candice's world is very important at the minute. And also these 3 saw Summer last. Or was it 4? And I'll explain why in a minute. So, my theory was, Don said he came at 5:30. He was adamant 5:30 before the police. And he told Chris, and I believe Chris, he told Chris that he didn't go straight up to the house because the police was there. So he went round to see who was by his shed. And the boys were, and he said, get back up to the house, and then turned around and then come up and had to prove who he was to get on the property. But he swears blind he got there before the police. Now, the police couldn't have got there. It took him apparently 45 minutes, but the police couldn't have got there at 6:30. So they must have got there for about 7, which means Don would have been there for 7:15 because he didn't go straight in, did he? He went round to see the shed. And if that's true, then Don knew that they'd been cut so he could see the shed on the road. Right? To see who was on there. Just saying. Right? So Jose knew the layout of everything in Candice's house. He also knew where the boys slept and where Summer slept. He also knew about the relationship between the mother, Candice, and Don. He was also nearly killed by Don, so he's going to be pissed. Very pissed. But he does know the dogs as well because he was there for a few days. No one knows exactly. The same between 2 and 3 days, but that's enough to get used to the dogs, and the dogs get used to you. Especially if you're feeding them treats and stuff. So these are important. So people get, oh, Jose, it was 6 months ago, 7 months ago, whatever. No, this is important. Because he knows the layout of the house. Hunter knows the layout of the house. Alison knows the layout of the house. And also about the mother and the layout of there. So these ones would know everything about the house. Inside, outside, round the grounds, everything. Right? So, careful when you say about Jose. CPS. Now, Candice would have been frightened that Don wanted Summer, remember. Candice didn't. She wanted her mum to adopt her. But Don wanted Summer. So, and now it's getting more clearer that Summer's the only one that loved him, and not that he was the only one that loved Summer, but apart from God, it was Summer. It was unconditional. Summer loved him. They were close, blah, 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 blah. She was a 5-year-old child, close to her dad and mum. They depend on them to live. That's what survival techniques are. Anyway, that's the point. So, CPS and Don, if CPS come and took the kids because the state of the house and the environment the kids were brought up in, there's only one person Don will blame because it's her job. Housemaker. See, Don's job was to bring in the food, bring in the money, bring in everything else, which he was doing. The kids were well fed. So in Don's world, he was doing his job, but Candice was slacking in hers. So if the kids were taken off because of the state of the house, they weren't being fed properly, they weren't being watered, they weren't being cared for, Don will blame Candice. And then he'll go into his way, you lost my daughter for me, you didn't want her in the first place, loses his temper, and, you know, things can happen. Right? And Candice is scared of him. So's the mother, according to Candice's police report. She's scared of what he could do. So, there's 3 theories. Did Candice, to save her and probably CPS from being attacked by Don, did Candice work with Don to plan this day out? By, if I take my mum to hospital for her knee, then from there we stay out all day. The boys go to work with you. No, they can't go to work with me because we're doing this, that and the other. Okay, the boys can stay at home, but we'll tell them not to open the door and lock them in. The dogs will be outside. We'll chain the gate so they know that nobody's in. And we'll tell the boys not to let anyone in or out. They stay in the house and play on Minecraft. That way CPS can't take him. From there, Don was calling them, which is what I believe Hunter is right, because he didn't yawn when he was saying this. He was actually relaying this very easily. That Don called to see where Candice was. Right? So what if Don was the one that texted and said it's done? So what if when he called Candice before they left the watering hole or whatever they want to call it, the horse thing or whatever, what if Don phoned her and she said, yeah, we're just going to pick up the prescription and then I'm dropping Hunter off. And Hunter goes, can I come to yours to see the boys? And no, we've got to drop you off at home, because then Hunter would have spoilt the plan. Because there's no other reason why Candice wouldn't take him up there. If they've just made friends and they've just spent the day together, why wouldn't he go up there to say hello to the boys and maybe play a couple of hours and then he could go home? Because it didn't fit in with the plan. Then Candice said to him, yeah, we'll be back about 6:30, 5:30, something like that. Don's phoned again and said, where are you now? Because I'm about to do it now. So she's saying we're on our way back. That's why she said, when Alison said, can I go up and see somewhere? She went, no, we've got to go. We've got to put the shopping away. It was like they were almost, it was like a panic. They needed to keep time. And she says she never keeps time. But this specific thing was, I need to get home, I need to get home, I need to get home. That was like a panic thing. I need to get home, I need to get home. So if you're on a plan, a schedule, because you're dependent on other people, then Don could have borrowed his car, gone up, waited for him, but not his car, like, so he borrowed a car, gone up, took Summer out while she was fast asleep in the car because she was probably sedated, took Summer out because she was sleeping very peacefully considering it was ice cold milk on her face. That would have burnt a child's face. And if you remember, H said, and so did Candy said, they both agreed that Summer feels the cold. So even when it was hot, she'd go, Mummy, can you put up the windows? It's cold. So there's no way that wouldn't have woke her up, putting her head on ice cold bottles of milk. Someone did, on one of the YouTube channels, did a temperature thing on the milks in that area. And she said it was like 35. It was really ice cold. She couldn't even drink it and catch a breath out the bottle. There's no way Summer wouldn't have jumped up if she would have fell against them, the cold milk, or the cold milk was put on her. So she was either dead or heavily sedated. My guess is she was heavily sedated and that was the drink. Because the way the drink fell looked like she took a swig, just tightened in and just went boom, straight down in minutes. Now, if she hasn't eaten all day and it's a painkiller, do you see what I mean? Then, after it finished, Don turned round and texted and said, it's done. On the way back to dropping the car off, then picking his car up and his phone, because he knew his phone would be traced by the police. Because don't forget, he's a criminal and he's been in prison before. So he's obviously heard before, oh, damn, if I didn't have my phone or my car with GPS and that lot, they wouldn't have caught me. So he's already heard why people got caught. So he knows about the phones and he knows about the cars and the Subaru and stuff. But he also knows about his work van might be so old that it won't have that in it. Do you see what I mean? So then he gets into his normal car, phones Candice up. Texas Candice says it's done. Waits for Candice to phone him, say call the police. He then calls the police. She runs to her mum, mum. Don says call the police. And then Candice calls the police. Why waste time? Why not just say, Mum, call the police? And then she calls Don. Why did she have to wait for Don's permission to call the police? Simple reason is because she had to wait to make sure that Don was at work, back where he should be. So when he calls the police, he's got his alibi at the same time as Candice called the police. Well, Candice is at home because that's what the phone says. And Don was at work because that's what his phone says. So he couldn't have run home in half an hour, so he'd be exonerated from Summer, he thinks. Complicated, but makes more sense to me in my head. Remember, this is my head. Right, this is my thoughts, my understanding of everything. Crazy, but true. So the text that, what's his name saw, she might have texted for some drugs when Summer went missing, and they come up and gave her drugs. That's why she was heavily sedated. That's why she didn't want to see. Didn't talk to anyone for 2 weeks, was because she couldn't cope with what just happened. Maybe she found out that next morning that Summer had passed away because they did it wrong, or they overdosed her too much, or the drug was too strong for her and she passed away. And so the mother needed to get a grip, so she just drank herself and drugged herself to get herself composed. Because I didn't see no doctor. I didn't hear police call doctor for Candice because she was so distraught. So she self-medicates, obviously. So did Hunter see? It's done. But it wasn't the drug dealer. It was Don who texted, it's done. Because he didn't look at the phone number. He just looked at the text that said, it's done. And that's what I think happened and what that text means. It's done. Now, everyone's saying, oh, you can't, Hunter's a liar, you can't. Look, Hunter's got ADHD, which people keep forgetting. So let me tell you a bit about ADHD, right? Especially our ADHD. What ADHD is high definition. So our brains go 20 to a dozen. Everything, he says he's observant, we're not. we're so fast at everything and seeing everything and noticing stuff that we sort of like, it runs in our minds 1,000 times. We can't sit still, because if we do, it feels like we're going to just die. We have to keep going and going and going and going. We get bored so easy and agitated if we're stuck in one place for too long. Right? So our brains are going 60 to a dozen and won't stop. It's like at any moment, it's like running a marathon in there, and it just doesn't stop. It doesn't give us a break. So things can happen. So what happens is we get our medicines to calm down everything. It's like being hyper on a cross between speed and coffee and caffeine and sugar. And you get to a state, I mean, if you've ever had a young child with ADHD, not a teenager or adult, but a younger child that's struggling, then they won't sleep, they'll be up all the time, but they'll be exhausted, their bodies will look tired, they'll look drained, they'll look thin, because we just run around and run and run and run, and we can't stop sleeping. We need to watch stuff. Oh, see, and even because I'm due my medicine now, can you hear my voice going faster? And it gets faster than that, and we end up, our memories end up just as confused and as fast. So when he's pulling things out, like he saw the text, he thought it was a bit suspicious. He could be right. He could be sitting there thinking, hold on a minute, Don's never done that before. Why would he do it now? But I think he didn't want to say it, but I think he thought Don might be thinking that him and Candice are having an affair, because he's probably not been the first time he's heard that from maybe his girlfriend's mother. Be careful, lad, they might think that you're sleeping with Candice or something, or she's after you, she's dirty like that, keep away from her, keep an eye on what she's doing, right? So he might have thought, well, he's already seen what happened with Jose, right? He already knows what happened that time with Jose, and Jose had to leave because he had a gun and got drunk. He's a 15-year-old boy, so he's going to be scared of Don, right? So he's thinking, oh, shit, what if Don thinks Candy's having an affair with me? And that's what he meant by suspicious. Not as in, oh, a bit suspicious why your husband will be phoning you. But, oh my God, that's a bit suspicious that Don will phone Candice to find out where she is, considering he's not done that when I've been with her before. Because he's obviously assumed that Candice has told Don that she's with Hunter and a mother-in-law, his mother-in-law. So Hunter's thinking, shit, what if Don's keep checking on her because he thinks I'm having an affair with Candice? Do you see what I mean? Because that's what I would think. I would think, shit. And with what happened with Jose, oh my God, he might think that Candice is after me. That's why we haven't seen each other for a year. Maybe he thinks now I'm 15 and bigger and older and I've grown, Candice is having an affair with me and he's going to come after me. And maybe it spooked him, as he calls it. He calls this scares spooks. So maybe it spooked him. You've got to be careful that you don't call ADHD people liars, because sometimes, like us with autism and that, and ADHD and that, we don't see like other people. We don't think the way other people, and our brains don't connect like other people. So to you, it might sound suspiciously like lies or manipulated, or it doesn't make sense. And that's because it won't make sense to people who don't have these conditions. Because our world don't make sense to people without ADHD or autism or learning difficulties. But in my world, I can understand someone with learning difficulties or ADHD and that a lot better than I can someone who hasn't got it. I don't understand their rules, the way they live, but I understand the way we live. if that makes sense. So it must be the same in your world. I wouldn't know, because I've not been autistic. I've not had learning difficulties. I've lived with this all my life. So I wouldn't know what it's like not to have this, and what do we look like to use, and what do we sound like to use, and what does our thought process sound like to use. Now, judging by the faces of my care workers, very confusing, I think, to use. Not sure though. And our behaviours might be odd to use. I'm not sure, because I'm not used. And this is why I wanted to do this, because this is what I'm saying. The police are stopping people, saying, if you're getting off the internet, I don't want to know. But this is what stops them finding people and that, because every single person's thought process, someone somewhere out there will have the answer to what happened, by the way they think, by the way they feel, by the way they see the evidence. Every single person's eyes is different to what they see, regardless if they have the same culture, the same breed, the same disabilities. We still see slightly different. We still think it's slightly different. Our brains are all different. It's like fingerprints. Every fingerprint is different. And even on twins, identical twins, their fingerprints are different. But yet the police don't want to have to think outside the box. And this is why so many cases are unsolved. Because they either don't want to think out the box, they don't want to listen to rumours, they don't want to listen to people's theories and thoughts. They just want evidence and facts. In my opinion, if they started listening to more people's theories and thoughts, and then took the facts off that and sat there with their information, put it together and think, actually it could be this, and then look at it, that's fair enough. But to just stop people talking about it, saying to people, listen, yeah, because you just want it to go away. Because now there's pressure. Guys, now there's pressure on the police to solve this case. Because nobody's going to let this case lie. Nobody. It's gone too viral for this now. So nobody's going to let the police just put it down as another missing person now. They can't. So this is what they hate. Because they can't just go, oh, well, another missing child, you know what that's like, move on. They can't do that because none of us in the public will accept that. And the police work for us. We pay their wages. They work for us, and we don't want them to give up. We want them to use every resource to find children and young adults and young people that have disappeared and older people. And they need to use every resource, including the internet. They need to get into the 21st century instead of staying back in the days with the whistles and the Bobby on the street type crap, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? But if they're not going to do that, then we're going to not stop them. We're not going to stop. We're not going to allow Summer to be another statistic. Or any other person that goes missing. And the police aren't going to like this. Because you imagine if every single person does this. So that's why the police don't want, and that's why they're probably going to try and get YouTube to make them cut out a lot of this. Like Summer thing, if they say certain words, just take the channel down because we don't want to know. Because they might say something that we don't want to know. I get that. But they're not showing us anything. They're not telling us anything. They're not giving us any evidence or how forward the case is. They're just saying still nothing new, according to them. But in the meantime, people are solving, or at least making attempts to solve the case. At least they're saying this could happen, that could happen, this could happen, and talking about it. Somewhere out there, someone's thought process is right, bang on. And someone believing where Summer could be might be bang on. Somewhere out there, someone knows. And they don't even know it themselves, that they know. but they could have the answer. And this is why I did this channel, because I'm sick of people being stopped, because they could have the answer without even knowing it. So this is why I think these are the most important, and this isn't as important. Animals she's scared of to go out into the woods and stuff, so she wouldn't go searching for Summer anyway, because she's just petrified. Church, she was being disrespectful, going around with a hoodie, sleeping through church, letting Summer run around. Don and the boys and Summer enjoyed it more than Candice. She couldn't care less about the church. Religion-wise, I don't think Candice is religious at all. I think she's just going on because she's bullied by Don too, to be fair. Because of a process. This is why maybe she doesn't cry at the visual, because she thinks, oh, just bugger off. You don't know Summer. Who do you think you are? And the church at the minute, I think Candice knows that the church at the minute is actually aiding and abetting Don and feeding Don. Another thing is, Candice has given up children for adoption for a better life. And that must have been painful for her being young, right? But if she could do that, and she didn't want Summer in the first place, she was going to let her mum adopt Summer. And she has a potential, another female child after Summer that they adopted out, gave up. Could she give Summer away? Would it be that hard? Could she be jealous of Summer? Because she wanted the attention off her dad and didn't get it. Her sister got more attention, right? She hated Rose. Now, not quite knowing, but all we know is that when Rose went missing and Candice's dad died, he left everything to Summer. Because apparently Summer reminded him of Rose when she was young. Rose is the sister that's missing for years. Right? So, we know that Candice has had a life of abuse, whether she chose it or had it, but not by her parents, by the looks of it. That's got to be looked into, which probably will in the future. But she was the last to see Summer. That is known. Right? So, to me, Candice worked with Don. She deleted the text, but didn't delete it out the bin. It's done. That could have come from Don's phone, or Don could have asked her workmate, could he borrow the phone to do that? So they wouldn't recognise the number. Don's not stupid because he's been in prison before. So he knows what had been caught and why they'd been caught. She's adamant that Don come before the police, but she's adamant it was 6:30 when Summer went missing and when she called the police in that minute. She's always talking about flowers. In fact, there weren't no flowers. You don't call cactuses flowers. They're actually cactuses, or cacti are plants. Okay, so, and I think these are important. And once we get all together, you'll see a picture. You will see a picture forming. So to me, like in Don's case was all about abduction, I don't think abduction is what Candice thinks or feels. She's just following what Don says. Because she said, I think someone come up here and took her. That's what Candy said. Someone come on here and took her. She didn't use the word abduction. She didn't use the word child. Anything to do with like child stuff. Nothing like that. She just said someone come up here and took her. That's what Candice thinks. Not abduction, right? So these are the people that are left. So these are going to be people. So we've done Don. We've just done Candice. So Don was 88%. Candice is 98%. Which one do you think should be next? The mother? Summer's grandmother? Alison, Hunter, or Jose, or the church? What do you think? Comment down below. Oh, I've got to say, please like, share, subscribe. If you don't like, can you put a thumb up or down? Could you comment down below if you think the videos could be better? How could they be better? How could they be changed? If you have a different theory, could you write it down ready for the live? And what do you think of this theory? Leave your comments down below. All comments are welcome, as long as they're respectful to each other and to yourselves. Stay safe, everyone. Stay safe. Love your family. Love your kids, because they grow so quick. Because we don't know when it's the last time we'll see anybody. Take care of each other. Take care of your corner. See you in a while, crocodile.